So this is the new book, and this focuses on 500 years of American and pre-American history. So I'll read you a little bit of the back cover and then jump into some of the poems that are related to local Floridian history, as well as going forward in time through some of the centuries. Here's the forgotten history of America and our future possibilities with time travel blended together in a poetry book of rare epic scope, sweeping through 500 years of American and pre-American history with new poems written each year from 1994 to 2013. Historiopticon offers the truth of American history with 1 to 2 poems per decade from the 1500s to the 2010s. Historiopticon with poems that travel through time and people from the past set in the present and vice versa. And when time travel became real, covering YouTube, the internet, and the importances of loyalty and friendship over time. Treading common historical ground in uncommon ways, and including and examining the lesser-known histories of women, Native Americans, African Americans, gay men and lesbians, and others, Historiopticon is a compelling, interesting, and accessible read. Historiopticon is America in all its challenge, wonder, and diversity across time. Anyone interested in poetry, American history, or time travel will find reading it to be an important educational experience and a rewarding investment of time. So I'm going to start off with a poem not set in Florida in the 1500s, but even earlier than that. The prelude of the book, Sunset in America, was set in the year 1100. And the research on this poem is all real. Cahokia. Sky of fire, vermilion-streaked lilac. Cloaked in 20,000 small shells, his eyes span the panorama before him. Thatched huts inside the wood palisade, 2 miles long, thousands more outside Cahokia's ceremonial center. Atop this grandest of grand plazas, 41 football fields in size. He eyes the portion where they'll play chunky in tomorrow's day, tossing spears exceeding his size toward a stone. He'll watch as thousands cheer. From heart to hip, his hand traverses shells, thinks upon several hundred sunrises of travel up and down the river, acquiring them. He wonders on what he's never seen, the vast river emptying to ever larger water, strangely garbed tribes to the far south. From the top of the pyramid atop the plaza, 100 feet higher than the thatched huts, he is solid enough, secure enough to dream. Peering into color-streaked sky, he can't imagine the spot of sky he eyes a few miles away someday will be the St. Louis Arch. Cahokia, center of the world, home to 15,000. Shells clatter as he outstretches arms, absorbs the setting sun, looks to the south and wonders what his world will be. 150,000 sunsets from now. 150,000 sunsets later brings us to 1513, although this poem is partly set in that time period from the perspective of the person reading it, and partly set in the future. So this is one of the poems where we play with history and the past gets shifted into the present. Ponce de Leon holds a press conference. Every great enterprise, every marvelous journey starts with that. Let us start there. I was born in 1460 in Service, Spain, page at the court of the King of Leon, soldier battling the Moors in Grenada, sailed with Columbus on his second voyage toward America. Established Caparra near San Juan in 1508, 1509 to 1511, governor of Puerto Rico. On Tuesday, March 3rd, 1513, I led 3 ships, Santa Maria de la Consolacion, Santiago, and San Cristobal, a caravelone, a brigantine, from the port of San Fernando through the Bahamas, onward to the land where Columbus never landed. The route from Puerto Rico to the Bahamas was simple. Follow the trail of blood of bodies to see slave cargo dumped in water. This was the easy part. Land, gold, prestige, legacy. These four things carried us forward to La Florida, unsurpassed beauty topped only by potential for wealth, for power. I liked power. I owned 300 native slaves in Puerto Rico. If they disobeyed me, if they attempted to defect from me, they would face my companion, Messineo, snarling, snapping apart Aramac men, women, children. We did not land at what you call St. Augustine. Wind taking us south to what you call Melbourne Beach. Landed, declared it for the King and Queen of Spain, left. It was so long ago, I can't recall who stepped off the boat first. My slave, my wife, myself. I can state one fact with full authority. My slave and my wife were my property. My footsteps were the only ones that counted. Age 52 for my first Florida parade. Age 61 when we returned to the west. February 1521, I gave it my all. 2 ships, 200 colonists, 50 horses, farm implements, livestock. We were here to stay. We were here. We created the first European settlement in this vast land on or near Sanibel Island. You've yet to find it. My name is Juan Ponce de Leon. My beard, once blonde, now gray. My eyes, ocean blue. I am the authorized eyes and ears here for King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. I am a Spanish conquistador. I got things done. And one more thing. With 4 children sired by age 50, I did not need a fountain of youth. Requerimiento was a Spanish contract read by the Spanish when they encountered Native Americans in land that the Spanish were claiming for the King of Spain. It was required by the king that this contract be read. So this is a scene near present-day Charlotte Harbor, Florida, but back in the 1520s. And the poem jumps back and forth in 2 parts. In one side, we have one voice, which is the voice of one of the Native Americans listening to this contract being read, and the other is the voice of the contract as it's actually translated and what the Spanish said to the natives, although it would have been helpful if they had translated it into the native language that the natives would have been able to understand at the time it was being read, but that didn't happen. So, requerimiento. Legs crossed, heels dug into sand, sniff ocean salt, watch gentle waves ebb, flow. Suns rise, make this God flash of fire in strange silver garb. We beseech and demand that you accept the church and that you acknowledge the king and queen as lord and superior authorities of these islands and mainlands. I don't understand a word he is saying. Arch backward. Fingers feel through sand. Look beyond him to the great canoe, its white wings flapping lightly. If you do not do this, we warn you that with the aid of God, we will enter your land against you with force. Hand motions up the beach into land. Seems serious, strong, smiles often. I like and respect this God. Close eyes, listen to his strange foreign sounds. We will make war in every place by every means we can and are able. We will then subject you to the yoke and authority of the church and their highnesses. Seems to want to share what we have. If we give grain, he may favor us, allow our crops to double, help our shaman heal those in our village with the sickness. We will take you and your wives and children and make them slaves. We will take your property, will do to you all the harm and evil we can. We have more than enough to share with this God, the few at his side. I like him, but others wave for him to leave. I promise myself to learn what property means. Shifting over, Christmas in America, 1540. We're now in New Mexico. And except for the fact that the narrator is realizing that we're at the time of Christmas, all the historical details in this are accurate. They're from the Journal of Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, one of his assistants, had written all this down around that time period. Christmas in America, 1540. There was a quiet snow, a ceaseless feather dusting that has buried me alive 10 nights in a row now. We huddle with horses for warmth. We don't like the fire and fear of the slaughter. We dreamed of gold, of silver, of glory, of rivers coursing with riches. In July, my general, Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, found Jawica, first of the famed 7 cities of Cibola. The crowded, crumpled village held savages in houses 3-4 stories high, facing a central courtyard, a trap door, a giant subterranean hall, small ark at center. We searched it all, even the twigs in the hearth. No gold. Now we dream of food, of warmth and shelter. When the snow buries, it blocks the wild wind. Though it falls on our baggage, covers half a man's height. Its weight does no damage. Should anyone come suddenly in night, all they'd see is snow, our army of 300 hidden below. I have heard rumors Francisco Vasquez intends to insist that the savages supply us with cloth. I think of those we met at the great rock of the Cuco who offered birds and provisions without our even asking. The general will give the order, the gentlemen will carry it out. They are no gentlemen. Like the sudden wind that turns gentle snow to blinding blizzard, I fear that order, fear those words will lip change as winds turn upon us unfavorably. But tonight, there is peace on earth. We have built a bona fide bonfire, strong enough to melt snow 2 to 4 yards away. If I have counted right, this is the night of our Savior's birth. A low canopy of stars luminesces the snow, and I feel His presence tonight amid the blazing juniper and pine in this strange, goldless, yet glorious land. Huitan is a Spanish form. Huitain is a French form. So this is the Spanish one. Huitan for Tristan de Luna y Arellano, July 1559, Northwest Florida. Caravel's coast, La Florida. Reach Bay of Ochuse, put ashore. Dispatch factor Luis Daza to Veracruz. Land and explore, abandoned land. Here the allure, wooded ample game, fish and corn. If not for hurricane that bore down, Europe's start here would be born. Jumping forward in the centuries to the 1700s, Jupiter Hammond writes a poem, Queens Village, Long Island, the evening of the 25th of December, 1760. I first wonder where he's writing and on what. Has his master said, here, use the writing desk, or sure, just use the kitchen table? Would it have been odd to request some parchment and a quill? Did he find way to ink a burlap sack? Did he think, this just isn't done? Did he add, well, I can't write, and I really want to write for God and Jesus? Somehow, in some quiet time on the night of Christmas Day, Jupiter Hammond wrote a poem. And he alludes to slavery in it, refers to the Lord as Jesus' quote-unquote captive slave, mentions how, quote-unquote, 10,000 angels cried to thee. In 1761, Hammond's poem is published in a broadside, making him America's first African-American male published writer. Meanwhile, in Boston, 8-year-old Phyllis Wheatley is learning to read and write, getting ready to make quite a mark of her own. The Signal. Charity Still and her daughters on the Underground Railroad in the 1810s. A blue light rests above the yellow light on a small wooden boat. Slowly we cross Delaware Bay, daring great crossing during the cold, comforting night. They jumpstart my bones, toss me a cloak, rush me from my sullen stiffness over the railing second deck. The blue of the light matches the blue of the Union Army, the blue behind the stars. Back to stiff silence hiding in the hall. His deep blue eyes tantalize. He gives me food and clothing. I'll never know his name, but he winks as conspiratorially as the North Star. The 1876 Centennial Exposition, May 10th to November 10th, 1876, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A Brazilian emperor and a U.S. president fire up the coreless engine which powers an exposition, gathers machines together for an unprecedented introduction to each other, to America, to the world. Mr. Typewriter meet Mr. Electric Dynamo. Heinz Ketchup meet Heyer's Root Beer. Current carries through the 450 acres, carrying the torch to light the Industrial Revolution, to place America on the world stage. We have arrived, we boast, from glass pavilions framed in high iron. We can change your world with each item you can buy. Some 30,000 exhibits, the hum, thrum, and crackle of all these machines. Sewing mills sewing, machines sewing, machines typing, machines making noise, which must mean some kind of progress. Here, try the Turkish hashish, Torah colonial kitchen, remember them? Here, the Japanese vases, and there, French cuisine with savory sauces. And over here, the high bicycles, soon one rage of the American Victorian age. Take a walk up Lady Liberty's torch, which someday will be a full statue. Look, the first women's pavilion, Susan B. Anthony handing out petitions to remove the word male from our laws. 10 million of us will see it all. Watch the teepees clustered on the grounds. 300 natives, 53 tribes, a daguerreotype of another America, their life devoured by this life, drowned by one dull, monotonous, mechanized hum. One skyline ceding to another at the dawn of our new age. Bayard Rustin organizes the 1963 March on Washington. I have a dream, he thundered to thousands, but even the great Reverend was no saint. Seeing them arrive on hundreds of buses to organize barricades, ample bathrooms, white America predicted all kinds of horror, as the unenlightened typically do. What they saw were neatly dressed people, intent listening, few, if any, problems. A masterpiece of theater staged for television and a world audience. Dazzled by Dr. King, few wondered how it all happened. How the hundreds of bathrooms. How the neat box lunches. Bayard Rustin. His name was Bayard Rustin. Tall, thin, African-American, intellectual, spectacled, point man for Dr. King. Bayard brought together all the details, leading, partnering, successfully coordinating a flawless invasion the scale of Normandy onto the National Mall, the Lincoln Memorial. Essayist, author, brilliant speaker. Ask most Americans, never heard of him. But he made history. Never heard of him. Never heard of him because of his selfless act. Determined to derail Dr. King's movement when he couldn't nail communism to Martin Luther King's cross, J. Edgar Hoover tried a different sign, a label of homosexual nailed to Martin Luther King's strategist. Fearing that accurate tar brush, fearing it could undermine the civil rights movement just as that freedom train was gaining traction, Bayard Rustin offered his resignation after years of service, guidance to Dr. King. Dr. King accepted Bayard's resignation. Martin Luther King asked us to imagine the day when justice would roll upon us like a mighty stream. Now that that tide at long last has begun to turn, perhaps it's time to acknowledge, remember, thank the homosexual who helped channel all that water. This is a longer poem, but it's one I wanted to read, especially since I'm in an Episcopal church, because this poem is a true story about a woman who her life had hit rock bottom. She was in one of the 10 worst neighborhoods in America, and she decided to get involved in her church, and it just changed everything around for her. And so this poem is about how, for some people, the power of religion really can make a positive difference in their lives and the lives of other people. This is a true story that happened in Baltimore, Maryland from 1994 to 1995, and it's titled Lafayette Courts. Poem 1. Dancing with Devils, 1994. Her swing sways like a pendulum. Her heart races furiously through a moment that seems interminably slow. The maroon pool blends with blue tar to leave another black spot as she races down flights of stairs, past broken elevator doors, the smell of stale urine. She throws open the front door, tears across asphalt to scream, cradle the leaking head. Cocaine upstairs forgotten for the moment, she pans hundreds of black spots splattered across the playground. Swings click time through drug-deferred defining moments during her 15 years here, but this time it's her daughter. Ambulance siren reverberates against the project towers as the sun sets ominously, sets to give way to firefly flashes of furious change, the dodging of bullets, the dealing of drugs. The siren drowns her sobs. She grits her teeth, braces for another frigid night under arc lights, no stars. Welcome to Lafayette Courts. She dances with the dealers. 5 interminable minutes pass before they let her pass through the drab brown stairwell. Frequently and furtively, she glances over her shoulder, rises up several flights, walks the long, peeling hallway, quickly opens, quickly closes her door. Shift, locked, turn, locked, bar set into the floor. A mirror check reveals red eyes, white powder below her nose. She passes the white powder and her daughter's picture, sets aside her best dress, swears a promise to the sky. This is going to end. This is all going to end. Tomorrow is Sunday. For the first time in 17 years, she is going to church. Poem 2, Judgment Day, August 19, 1995. Her day has come with a quiet sunrise. She feels the Lord strongly within her. Optimism overtakes fear, fills her heart fully for the first time in years. There will be balloons and photographers and 565 families bitterly divided by her civil war, a war she launched and won. There will be T-shirts and a parade, a ceremony conducted by the mayor. For now, there is only one moment. The feel of her Bible in her hand, her 2 fingers touching the green ribbon, marking her favorite passage. Her days a year of victories. Daily drug sweeps by police, security by the Nation of Islam, expansion of the recreation center, hospital plan for a local clinic, McDonald's plans a restaurant, and, praise God, a management training center. Cocaine-free, a church leader, tenant council president, she is taking courses this fall toward her college degree. Her life, a series of light switches turned on in sequence over time, each switch casting an ever-brightening glow. And now she smiles, just one more switch to throw. She reflects on the frequent meetings, grant proposals, council debates, signed petitions, majority decision. The crowd of 3,000 turns quiet. As the mayor concludes his speech and slams his 2 hands downward, she opens her Bible to her favorite passage and waits. And Linda Love's heart lifts with pride as she watches 6 high-rise towers, the 6 square city blocks that held the 565 families, as she watches 20 acres of Baltimore and 17 years of her misery finally and furiously smited to rubble. She tightens her hold on her daughter's hand and quietly whispers, "Amen," amidst a massive cloud of detonated debris and its gloriously deafening roar. Historical note, The destruction of Lafayette Courts in August 1995 was, at its time, one of the largest planned multi-structure implosions in the Western Hemisphere. I have now 3 or 4 more for you. A few appropriate remarks for A. Lincoln. All are created equal. Even you realized it was a proposition, no guarantee. Now we stand divided on new, broad battlefields: abortion, the death penalty, marriage equality, immigration. If we believe each person deserves the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, why deny gay men, lesbians the right to marry, their right to pursue happiness? What do you think, Mr. Lincoln? If we believe Patrick Henry's "give me liberty or give me death," should we deny those who have decided they can no longer fully partake of liberty their choice to die with dignity? What's your opinion, Mr. President? I see your eyes are tired. Your visage stares at me in silence. You endured General McClellan. We endured Thurmond and Helms. I guess we can agree across history, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Can we rise to the great task remaining before us? Will we achieve a new birth of freedom? Or has the government you described, of the people, by the people, truly for the people, already perished from this earth? All are created equal. Will our actions speak as loudly as your words? This is the topic that never seems to end. This poem was written in 2003, but it jumps in time all the way back to 1950, and it's in the news this week. North Korea. This is titled Sestina of Six Koreas. Now, Sestina is a 39-line poem. There's 6 stanzas of 6 lines apiece, and a tercet 3 lines at the end where you have to use all 6 words at the end of each of the lines in the stanza. So when you're writing the poem, the end word of each stanza has a letter assigned to it. So the first stanza, the last word be A, B, C, D, E, and F. And those words in a sestina have to rotate in a very specific pattern in the course of the poem. And you have to use 2 words per line in the last 3 lines. So this poem follows the sestina format. But I'm going to pop years in here, and they're all years related to the incidents that are happening. So rather than it being one lengthy poem, it's actually a series of 6 snapshots of North Korea and South Korea in different periods of time. Sestina of Six Koreas, 2003. Memories lift from a half-century-old suitcase they carry and open each Memorial and Veterans Day. Listen, they ask a smaller audience each year. Wrapped in parkas and gloves, we stop our busy lives, sacrifice a little time to gain insight into that country, Korea, glimpse around, wonder why others are missing. 1950. You don't think of what you are missing, only the weight of what you must carry. You bob up and down on a boat to another country, Korea, which you know nothing about, but you listen as commanders ask you to sacrifice again, just after you had World War II wrapped. 2003. In Beijing, each paper has potential. Mystery wrapped in communist files, now newly opened key to find the missing 8,100 Americans in Korea who made the ultimate sacrifice. They disappeared. Some say death should carry the greater weight, but think a bit and listen. What if one American still remains in that country? 2000. Brief moment of hope for a united country. Families separated for over 40 years, wrapped in long lines along the DMZ. Talk, listen, hug in tears, apologize for missing entire lives. A shining day they will carry home to separate lives, their ultimate sacrifice. 2001. North Korea will sacrifice nothing and everything. The country starves its civilians while its million-man army can carry bayonets, march in brown uniforms, heads wrapped warm in fur hats with square tops. All that's missing is the sound of plutonium. Listen. 2003. North Korea goes ballistic or nuclear. Now we listen. What mixed messages America sends. Sacrifice human rights, tightly control visitors, keep food missing from civilian tables, and we'll treat you as a country. The yin and yang of freedom they stand daily, wrapped around made in Korea binoculars they separately carry. Carry on, South Korea. Perhaps someday the North will listen. Wrapped in isolation, the North stands in defiance. Its sacrifice, a 21st century country nightly with electric light missing. I sometimes write poems that jump through different subject matter, time period, and I like poems that kind of twist around from what you think they were about when they begin, and this is one that falls in that vein, which is part of my style of writing. I wrote this poem a few years ago, and the facts in here are all historically accurate and relevant, even if you've never heard of them before. This poem is titled American Hate. I don't believe they are using American planes in America to attack Americans. Her words trail to whisper as her severe sadness rises with each pounding of debris onto her city blocks. Chaos concatenates, images resonate, the touch of a child's hand, the smell of a child's fear, the screaming and scurrying, above all, the underlying whisper, what did we do? What did we do? The teal-blue morning propelled forward, the takeover of airplanes by the police, their dropping of bombs made of dynamite, their machine gun fire at American children. From 6 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., the racists rampaged, 1,115 residences destroyed, deep Greenwood decimated, the morning of June 1st, 1921. Armed whites interred blacks dragged their corpses through streets, severed telephone and telegraph lines, isolated the black neighborhood from the rest of Tulsa, Oklahoma, from the rest of a world that would forget it ever happened. I don't believe they are using American planes in America to attack Americans. September 11th, 2003. A friend places Scott Ellsworth's Death in a Promised Land, the Tulsa race riot of 1921, back on my coffee table and shares some thoughts. How we are in a different country now. How it's terrible to have to count such darknesses in our history, yet extremely important to do so. How we Americans have evolved. And especially how good it is we don't discriminate against an entire class of Americans anymore, ending the endless passing down of American hate. I let her finish, then quietly replied, so, tell me, do you support same-sex marriage? Part of this poem takes place on board RMS Titanic. This is one of 8 poems about that, of the last note. Light fights night tonight. As piano, 2 violins, 2 cellos, 1 string-bass viola place tonight's mood as autumn attempt to soothe. The sizzle, crack, and pop of light bulbs contribute counterpoint. Like a dream tonight, as the music carries far over thin and cold air. Like a dream tonight, as the last bulb pops, as a giant monolith darkens, prepares to dive. Waves lap lost steel, ripple broken bodies, debris, deck chairs. Groaning steel accompanies 2 violins, 2 cellos, 1 piano, 1 string-bass viola from the Titanic silhouette. From wooden lifeboats, from under wool blankets, wonder crescendo. Survivors watched the shadow lurch and lean, looked at each other, asked, how in God's name can they still be playing? The surrounding icy Atlantic offered the only clear answer. They're not coming. Let me sleep. I must be in heaven. I hear music. I hear beautiful, Beautiful music. And to conclude, Atlantic City whispering. Did you just push me on a rolling chair through time, or was an ancient wind beckoning me backward? Did you dress as a lobster lately, or stand with me under the knotted logs of a forgotten hotel as we surveyed changing landscape under silent stars? How can we move a wooden elephant, yet be unable to return to diving courses, midget boxers, bed-making contests on the boardwalk? Why did Mr. Peanut shell out? Have you set foot outside that casino just once to see the real Atlantic City? Look and listen to the ocean. It whispers to memories of floats, of amusement rides, of bathing beauties, of sand harbors, of children, and of one giant typewriter. Look and listen to memory. It whispers in waves, come back. Come back to me and make me whole again. Thank you all for listening. If you are interested, Historiopticon is only available ordering online, and I have slips as to how to do that, though you're welcome to come up and look at the book if you like.